Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel, where today once again we're going a little bit off script. Growler says hello too. Yeah, I know. So I haven't done one of these particular videos for a very long time because, to be honest, I don't do as much reading as I should. However, excuse me, I have been on holiday recently and I finally managed to read 5 books. Well, I actually ended up reading 6 books that I could do as a thing for you, but one of them is a series of books and I kind of want to cover the series. So I'm going to invert this and start from the oldest one that I've read down to the bottom. So the first one is an incredibly factual book about England's witchcraft trials written by Willow Winsham. And basically it's a non-fiction book about what happened during the witch hunts in the UK, not the ones in Salem. The back says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." With the echo of that chilling injunction, hundreds were accused and tried for witchcraft across England throughout the 16th and 17th century. With fear and suspicion rife, neighbour could turn against neighbour, friend against friend, with women, men and children alike caught up in the deadly fervour that swept through both village and town. From the feared covens of Pendle Forest to the victims of the unswerving fanaticism of the Witchfinder General, so-called witches were suspected, accused and dragged into the spotlight to await judgment and their final fate. So this actually only covers 4 particular incidents, plus a general quick overview in the first couple of chapters of the book. It was a very interesting book. There's not a lot I can say really without going hugely into what actually happened. The Pendle Witch Trials was a very interesting one in which one child, which was a Pendle child, pretty much accused her entire family and was therefore the only survivor of her family. So that goes in, it also goes into a little bit of the psychology. Did she actually understand what she was doing? Was she just led on? Was she counselled on how to act? What do you believe? Growler, please leave that alone, you'll get yourself sick. Unfortunately, I did try and lock them out of the bedroom, but they scratched at the door, so I just figured it would be easier to open the door, do a video and let them kind of do what they want. There's a chapter on how the Pendle witchcraft started, about possessions and how like some of the witches got caught through that, about the families at war. Oh, there's a really interesting one in here that I didn't know about, which was basically an old woman was accused of bewitching an entire family, and she was forced to go and live with them for like 3 years, and eventually they just killed her, and it was terrible. So yeah, this is a really good, interesting book if you like historical factual novels about witchcraft trials. So that's my non-fiction book of the day. I haven't read many non-fiction recently. I've gone back to reading my fiction. Right, so this one I actually read ages and ages ago. I did it before, I read it before October last year, when I did the last book review. Oh god, that's been a while. But this wasn't a horror book, so I kind of thought it didn't make sense for me to do that book at the time. So it is Far Cry Absolution. It is Far Cry 5, the prequel novel to Far Cry 5. I'll quickly read the back for you. Hope County, Montana, land of the free and the brave, but also home to a fanatical doomsday cult known as the Church of Eden's Gate, that has slowly been infiltrating the residents' daily lives in the past years. Mary May Fairgrave, a local barkeep, has lost almost everything to the church. Her parents died in suspicious conditions, and her brother, entranced by the cult leader's charismatic words, has vanished. Then the authorities refused to investigate further. She decided to take matters into her own hands. Local hunter William Boyd was saved by Eden's Gate years ago during the darkest moments of his life. When his duties lead him to cross paths with Mary May, the daughter of one of his old friends, he soon discovers that what is happening in the county is far from what he believed. Up against an omnipotent and dangerous adversary, Mary May stands little chance, but the unexpected intervention of William Boyd will change her journey as well as his. So this is a very interesting book, and the first thing I want to say is the main antagonist of this book is not Joseph, it's not Jacob, and it's not Faith. They are briefly mentioned, and by briefly I mean I think there's half a paragraph for Faith in this book. It's John Seed is the main antagonist in this book. William Boyd is a character that I really liked, and I'm really sad that he didn't actually get more in the book itself. In the game itself, because he's an interesting character. He's about 60, and he has been with Eden's Gate for the last 20 years, because apparently Eden's Gate was in Hope County for 20 years, and he's been providing them with food by hunting and stuff like that. And it does go into real detail about how they bought out a lot of the places, what's going on, what's going wrong, all that kind of thing. And John Seed is very much a very dangerous character in this book, while also being quite sympathetic at certain points, which is terrifying because that's what you need in a really good villain. But there was a lot that I found wrong with this book. So for example, in the game, John Seed is 32 years old. He has been with the Church of Eden's Gate for about 10 years by that point. Which, I mean, fair enough. It kind of doesn't mesh up in the game with what they said he did, but we don't know for exactly if it was 10 years or if it was 5 or if it was 6. But basically, John Seed is 32 years old. In this book, he's closer to 45. And Joseph, instead of being 45, is closer to being 60. Which doesn't make much sense when you then add on the years to New Dawn, when he's probably approaching 80, and he definitely doesn't look like he's 80 in New Dawn. 60, maybe, 80, nowhere near. So it pretty much starts off with Mary May's father dying, and she has to go and investigate. She does find her brother. It all goes a little bit wrong for her from then. And she meets up with William Boyd, and she does actually nearly get inducted into the cult, which is something that isn't really detailed in the game, other than she has got envy written across her chest if you look carefully at the model. But yeah, oh no, she doesn't anymore, because she's the one that in one of the hospitals, there's a note that says I got this removed, which is Mary May got the tattoo removed because she had an allergic reaction. So that was her, and that's in this book. So it's a good book, but as you're reading it, you really have to put your mind out away from the game. Otherwise, there are some things that don't mesh between the two. It was well written. It was an interesting read. I literally read this in a day, and it is, I mean, it's not got small writing. 239 pages. I mean, it's not small, but it's not huge writing. So yeah, that's a really interesting book. Really like that one. Cool. The next one, The Ghost and the Lady, is actually a manga, and I've got it upside down. Yes, it's a very interesting manga. It's been strangely drawn. I wouldn't say that the actual art style appeals to me at all, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, some of it's pretty, some of it not so much, and there's a lot of nudity. But anyway, and only a little bit of it in colour. I really like the story behind this book. This is part 1 of 3, I think. And Darkest Nightingale is what this one's called. And deep in London, Scotland Yard sits an evidence room dedicated to the greatest mysteries of British history. In this black museum sits a misshapen hunk of lead, 2 bullets fused together, the key to the untold story of a wartime encounter between Florence Nightingale, the mother of modern nursing, and a supernatural man in grey. The record books show Florence fought for compassion as Empire's petty rivalries threatened to destroy the hopes and lives of common people. But a guest in the Black Museum knows the truth is not so simple, and the famed lady with the lamp has a ghastly secret. So this is, the front man on the front is a man in grey. I can't remember his name. Let's see if I can find it. No, I can't. But basically, it goes, the idea is that humans have these things, spirit creatures attached to them called eidolons. And the eidolons attack other people. So if you have bad feeling towards someone, they will attack that other person for you without you realizing it. So it's a very interesting idea. Let me see if I can find something about Eidolons. Let me see. Okay, let me find it. Right. Okay, come on. Right, they're black shadow-like creatures haunt all living men. When men bear malice towards one another, when they feel envy, these shadows grow large enough so grow large, although mankind cannot see them. These shadows take many different shapes depending on the person to whom they are attached. People give them fancy names like phantasm or apparition, but they are no more than parasites of the soul, eidolons, if you will. They attack with weapons like appendages and even stretch their extremities to entwine their opposing hosts. Hatred between two people is but a clash of eidolons attacking each other beyond human sight. And Florence Nightingale's eidolon attacks her. She doesn't like herself very much, and she asks the Grey Man to kill her. And in the end, he's like, no, I will kill you because I've promised that I will kill you, but I will only do it at the moment when your life is the most happiest that it has ever been, and then I will snuff out your life. And that's the deal he makes, and he follows Florence Nightingale around, and it is her adventures with him about how they deal with other people's eidolons and how it kind of mixes in with the wars and stuff like that. So basically, yeah, it's like how she uses her eidolons to attack some of the bad guys, some of the opposing officers and stuff like that. He attacks their eidolons for her, because once he's killed her eidolon, she doesn't have it anymore, so she can't defend herself, I think, and he does it for her, but not all the time, only sometimes. And it's really good. That's actually really good. I am looking for book 2, but these are quite expensive on Amazon, and this was a gift from a charity shop for a friend, so I will get it eventually, because the Black Museum was a really interesting story and I do want to read the rest of it. Okay, next book. Actually, that one's the last one. Right, I'm going through the order that I read them. This one, The Ripper Secret by James Becker. Oh my god, this book. A priceless relic and a monster that will do anything to get hold of it. In the summer of 1888, a killer rampages through East London, but what are the real motives behind the murders? Police Commissioner Charles Warren has in his possession an ancient artifact of incredible value and unknown danger. Discovered on a mission to Jerusalem, he smuggled the relic back to England, never imagining the peril he would place himself in, and more devastatingly, the woman of Whitechapel. As the Ripper strikes again and again, the truth may finally be uncovered. So that's the basis. It's a Jack the Ripper tale in a very interesting vein. Actually, I think it's... the murders only actually start happening. Yeah. A quarter of the way through the book is when the murders start actually happening, and it ends about there-ish. So only 2/4 of the book are actually about murders. The writing is desperately tiny, and I'm dyslexic, so it made this book really hard to read. Another thing that made it really hard to read is if you love the Ripper, or the mystery behind the Ripper. I'm not saying I idolise the murderer. I like the mystery behind the Ripper, and I'm not really a Ripperologist, as they'd say, but I really do like watching documentaries, coming up with the new ideas, and yeah, it's really hard to read that chunk, which made getting to the end really difficult, because it's basically a very dry recounting with some literal fantasy elements to it of how the murders went down and how people investigated, and it was really hard to read. There were some interesting points in this book, I won't lie. It talks about bloodhounds and how they were first introduced in this particular serial killer, but it didn't work because they didn't have the correct amounts and all that kind of stuff. But it also comes up, what's his name? Alexei Pedachenki? I think that's his name. Alexei. His name is Alexei. I've never heard of this guy before, but he was a Russian accused of being Jack the Ripper. So the idea behind this book is Charles Warren is an engineer for the army, and he is sent on a mission to Jerusalem, as I read on the back. And he finds the Jewish menorah. I can't say if I pronounced that correctly, so I apologise. And Alexei decides that he wants it because he wants the money, basically. And Alexei knows Charles Warren has it, tracks him down 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, and demands it back, otherwise he's going to go on a murder spree. And obviously Charles Warren goes, no, I'm not giving you this sacred relic. No one's quite sure why he's got it either, but I'm not giving you this sacred relic. And he goes on a murder spree. I'm not going to go into the ending in case you want to read this, but it is a very interesting read. Just like I said, it's a bit dry in the middle. And very small writing, so it took quite a while for me to get through that one. But a good book nonetheless. This one, Clive Barker's The Scarlet Gospels. I read this one in about 2 days when I was on holiday. The writing's not particularly big, which I suppose made that easier. But there was some printing issues on my book. Let me see if I can find you one. So yeah, half the page goes really pale. Yeah. So it is the expansion on the story of the Hellbound Heart, which obviously created Hellraiser. And the synopsis goes, something beckons. The last of Earth's magicians are living in fear. A Cenobite hell priest known as Pinhead is killing them off, gorging on their knowledge to enhance his own magical powers as part of a quest to take over hell. Meanwhile, private investigator Harry D'Amour is fulfilling the final wishes of the dead who communicate with his business associate, the blind medium Norma Payne. But when investigating one such case, Harry inadvertently opens up a portal between hell and Earth. When Harry's nemesis Pinhead emerges through the portal, a vicious battle ensues. After failing to enlist Harry to pen his Scarlet Gospels, the epistles chronicling the Hell Priest's grand coup, Pinhead instead captures Norma. Harry realises he must go through hell, literally, to save her. Now, the first point I'd like to say is, I think Norma gets captured. There. So halfway through the book is when she actually gets captured. Now, I really like the setup to the book. It's split into 4 parts. The first chapters are about the final Pinhead finally murdering the magicians. I don't feel particularly bad spoiling that because it is literally the first 5 chapters of the book. However, if you have been raped at all or suffered sexual harassment, I know that's out of the blue and I should have put a trigger warning, but do not read this book. There is a lot of that in here, and there is a lot of non-consensual touching, sex and all that kind of stuff. Growler, which people would probably expect because it is a Hellraiser book, but I didn't like how much it was detailed. The ending was it left a bad taste in my mouth. I know it's about it's pretty much the hero's journey, but slightly twisted. And I did enjoy the book, don't get me wrong, but it did kind of make me go, until that final page of the final chapter, I was like, you're gonna have to do something pretty big to fix this. And to be fair, he did. So it is a very good book. I do recommend it, but obviously, please take those providers into account. So I hope you have enjoyed this book review video. I haven't done one for ages. I hope you don't mind about that. But please do like, comment, subscribe. And if you wish to support me a little bit more, Patreon is down below. I will also start including my Ko-fi account if you just want to give me a coffee. Thank you. I'm not going to force anyone, but I just thought I'd pin it on at the end. Have fun, take care, and goodbye.